you so much, Brian, for
Thank
taking
you.
the time to talk to me.
Thank you.
First off, I have to tell you, I love Join or Die.
Thank
That
you
was
so
so
music
great.
to my ears.
I love that so much, and I was so sad it went away.
I've had a lot of shows I produced get canceled. It is what it is. It's the nature of the business.
But that was so
That
good.
was so painful that they didn't pick it up.
I loved it.
I don't know.
I love Craig. Craig is just
I love that
hilarious.
show, and I love Craig.
He's smart and funny and
He's wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful guy too.
So to the Toys That Made Us and your new project, The Movies That Made Us, which I'm really excited to hear about. Children of the 80s seem more drawn to nostalgia than any other group. Is that maybe due to the decade being such a great, point of technology coming into the fore? Do you think that we seem, we were able to be more connected at that time with everything that was coming at the time, like with cable television, VHS, and all of that? Do you think that's why we really love this and are able to join about it?
I think you're right that it's the technology, but I don't think it was the technology of the 80s. I think it's the technology of now. And what I mean by that is, like, if you lived in the 80s, if you were born in the 50s and you lived in the 80s, you couldn't see commercials from the 50s on YouTube.
That's true.
So that's what the nostalgia thing is. We're the first generation living in a time where stuff that existed when we were kids that we never thought we would see ever again, we just have to go to YouTube or Google. There it is. The most obscure thing ever. And I remember a couple things. I remember I was a huge fan of Quantum Leap when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I had never seen the first episode. So when I was growing up, like, if you hadn't seen the first episode, you had to like sit there, especially if it was season 4, like, and you had to like constantly be vigilant. When are they going to air the first episode again? So I had never seen the first episode of Quantum Leap. Then we got Netflix. My wife got it. I didn't know what it was. I'd heard about it, whatever. And I'm sitting there looking at Netflix, and my wife's showing me how it works and everything. And I'm like, maybe there's Quantum Leap. And 10 seconds later, I'm watching the pilot to Quantum Leap. So then imagine a detergent commercial that your mom or dad used to sing the jingle to. Again, if you're in 1980 and your mom was born in 1940, that you're not going to be able to find that. But if you're living in 2019 and your dad is like blah 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 detergent, he can go to his phone and show you, look, this is what I'm talking about. And so it's YouTube and Google and also the phones just being I have in my collection a light bike from Tron, one of those yellow light bikes, and my son, 4 years old, saw it and he's like, what's that? Beep beep boop boop beep. I showed him the scene. 10 seconds later. That's why nostalgia. So it's not like we're the big nostalgia generation and like the next one won't be. I predict this is now a part of human DNA.
So kind of piggybacking off of that, it's the nostalgia that, especially for the 80s, it just seems like and like it could be a generational thing, but it seems like kids that grew up when you did, we kind of are going back, like with the toys especially, we're buying stuff like crazy. We're spending, if you go on that convention floor right now, I don't even want to know what these people are getting into for this. But it seems like, do you think it's a way to feel protected and safe again? Because back in that time, we had things like the AIDS virus, we had things like the Iran-Contra, we didn't know if we were going to get blown up thanks to movies like the Day After Tomorrow and I think that, no, The Day After. Day After, which is a really horrible, terrifying movie.
Holds up.
Yeah, it's just horrible. Do you think it's a way, with all the things going on in the world right now, to make us feel safe again?
Well, I think you hit the nail. I get asked this a lot, but usually I explain what you just said, and people are like, "Oh, that's true." But so I completely agree with you. It's who you are when you're playing with a toy. So the example I use, and it's funny, I always have two examples. One of them is venereal diseases, not just AIDS, but even before AIDS. But like when I was in the 4th grade, I lived in New York, we would do duck and cover exercises.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there in the 4th grade, I'm 10 years old, and it would be time to do a duck and cover exercise. And as a 10-year-old, it's the best thing ever. We're gonna stop doing math, we're gonna goof around and hide under our desks, and it was fun. I didn't know what an ICBM was. I didn't know what radiation was. I didn't know what the Soviet Union was. Then you look at my teacher, 30, 40-year-old woman, she knows what radiation is. She's trying to teach a math class that she has to stop. She knows damn well hiding under the desk if Russia nukes us isn't going to do anything. So she has to stop her class. It's the same thing. 30, 40-year-old woman, not liking it at all. 10-year-old little boy, loving every minute of it.
Right.
So that's how you see your toys. So now, when you're 40 or 50 and you see something, it reminds you of who you were at a time where you didn't know what venereal diseases were. You didn't know what bankruptcy was. You didn't know what debt and credit, like, you miss that about yourself. So it's not just about, oh my God, I love He-Man so much, I have to spend $50 to buy the
Duo
vehicle.
set,
Yeah. Like, it's about, oh my God, the feeling I get knowing before I was divorced, before, like, my daughter won't talk to me, like, before that happens to a person, remembering that's why you spend $50 on Battle Cat.
Yeah, and so, and it's kind of piggybacking off of that. The toys back in the 80s, they seem to have more of a story to them too, which is another thing that I was fascinated by with, like, He-Man. They put a lot of work into that story and into making like a mythos to it. And it feels like today maybe it's just me being crotchety and old and 44, but you know, that you had like those little books that came with it that told you stories. Do you think that's kind of part of the longevity, especially with these that you're focusing on? Because like Transformers has this crazy myth to it.
Very respectfully, I completely disagree with you.
Okay.
And part of why I disagree with you is I have 3 kids. I have a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Oh, you have Dragon Ball.
What's that?
You have Dragon Ball.
My wife does. There's more stuff. There's more story now than there was. There's this thing my daughter plays with called Shopkins. Have you ever heard of Shopkins?
Oh God, yes.
The story behind, I mean, it comes with, literally it comes with this little pamphlet that's folded 6,000 times. You open it, it's like bigger than a pirate ship sail, and it's like, this is this person, this is that person, they do this person, like, there's more story than ever. Like, I sit there with my daughter's stuff in particular, my son's a little bit, but my daughter's stuff in particular, it's like, how are they expecting a kid to learn all this? So, like, to your point, He-Man came with a comic book this big and 9 pages. My daughter's comes with, like, books. My daughter collects Modern Girl, no, what is it called?
American Girl?
American Girl? Have you ever opened one?
They're dense. They're
They
dense
come with books.
Yeah.
They literally come with books.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the story is more important than ever.
Awesome. So, let me see here. I'm jumping around a little bit.
Jump around.
But
Great song.
you know, it's true. So you are now doing the films that made us, which sounds amazing, looks great. I love what I read
Thank
that
you.
you're picking from. Are you going to talk about the community of VHS, which I think people don't realize how big that is, even today, how they have the subculture of VHS junkies that refuse to get rid of them and let it die. Will you talk about that at all?
No.
Okay.
No, and the reason is it's a subject I am personally very interested in, and I would argue I'm a member of it. It's so funny. I've thrown out all my DVDs. I have thrown out none of my VHS. So I still have all my VHS. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and I consider myself to be a member of that. But similar to toys, like on toys, I get asked all the time, why don't you do more about the fans? Why don't you should show the fans. You should show the collections. I'm a fan. I have a collection. I have a huge collection. Huge. No one wants to see that. Like, you will get emotion from learning where Optimus Prime came from. You will get emotion to learn why did Barbie look sideways for 30 years and then look right at you in the 70s. You will get emotion from that. No one's gonna get emotion looking at a shelf full of toys. Like, it's just not emotional. It's the same thing with this VHS question. Like, and I just want to also say, for the record, this is my opinion. I could be completely wrong. I mean, this is just, when you're a director, you have to make decisions. That's what I'm doing. They could all be wrong. But just to explain to you my logic behind the decision, if I'm giving an hour of my time to a show about Dirty Dancing, if Netflix is giving me hundreds of thousands of dollars to tell a story about Dirty Dancing, both parties want me to use their time and Netflix's money to find out the best juicy data or information, which is of course called story, about Dirty Dancing. They don't want it the same way I don't think anyone cares about collecting toys. Like, you watch a show about Transformers, why is the gun the bad guy? Why is the truck the good guy? That's where we spent our time and money. They don't need me to show a package of Optimus Primes, and I don't think I would watch a documentary about VHS culture. I don't think that's a good use of my time, and I have to be under 50 minutes.
Right.
So to stay under 50 minutes, I try to avoid that stuff like the plague.
I heard you talking about the 2.5 hour cut of the Star Wars toys. I get that. I understand that. Got it. So my next question then is kind of hopping back to when I was growing up, I was always about I don't want to call them ripoffs, but they're sort of like this. They're kind of, they jumped on the train of the toys. Like with She-Ra, there was a series of toys called Golden Girl.
Sure.
There was Silverhawks wasn't really Thundercats ripoff. It was more of along the lines of that. Sectors. Are you going to talk about? And I would love, just personally, I would love to know the story behind those and how they happened. Would you ever do like a one-off episode of Toys That Made Us that's focused on these random, weird toys that kind of spun away from the ones that were the mainstream?
If we get to make a 5th season minimum, maybe. If we get to make a 6th season, almost definitely.
Awesome.
Similar to what you're talking about, I want to end, what I'm hoping is Netflix will not only greenlight a final season, but will tell me we're not making any more. So that means I got nothing to lose. So what that means is, what I want to do is I want to end the whole show with an episode called The Toys That Should Have Not Been Made. And it, to me at least, it's the perfect bookend to the Star Wars episode, because Star Wars is an example of everything went right. The main story in the Toys That Shouldn't Have Been Made episode is LJN's Dune, where
Oh my God, yeah.
not only did everything go wrong, it bankrupted LJN, it bankrupted the movie studio that made it. David Lynch didn't direct for 10 years. Kyle MacLachlan is on the record saying Dune did more damage to his career than Showgirls. Like, so I really want to show the audience, like, because there's a great way to tell the story, which is we would literally intercut with the Star Wars people. Jim Swearingen is like, I read this, I love George Lucas. So I read the script, and I love the script. So I went to my boss. He loved the script. I got the boss, but we made Star Wars. We could tell that exact same story for Dune. There's a guy that worked at LJN. He loved David Lynch. He read the script. He loved the script. He went to his boss. His boss loved the script. They bet the whole company on it, just like Kenner. And it all failed. It's one of the biggest disasters in toy history. So what I love about the story is it shows the delicate nature of the business and the risk involved with the business.
I would watch the hell out of that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
That's awesome.